You know, when we think of Gandhi, we usually picture the Mahatma, right? The leader of a nation, this global icon of peace. But that's the finished monument. Today, we're going back to the quarry. We're going to explore the actual blueprint of the man, and it's hidden in his earliest and honestly often overlooked writings. So let's dive in.
The people who put together all his writings really hit the nail on the head with this. To truly get a figure like Gandhi, you can't just cherry-pick the famous moments. You got to see the whole journey, right from the very beginning. Otherwise, you just might get the wrong idea.
And wow, what a journey it was. His collected works, they span over 50 massive volumes. I mean, that's just a monumental record of a life. But today, we're just going to focus on one, Volume 1. Why? Because hidden in the letters and the diaries and the early articles of a young student is the very blueprint for the man he was going to become.
All right, so our story kicks off not in India or South Africa, but in London. This is where a young Mohandas Gandhi shows up as a law student back in 1888. And this was his first great test, a time that would forge the incredible self-discipline that pretty much defined his entire life.
Now, what's so fascinating here is that his entire London experiment kind of hinged on this one single, sacred vow he made to his mother. Friends, even doctors, were telling him there's no way you'll survive the English cold without meat. But for Gandhi, this wasn't really about diet. It was a foundational test of his own integrity and self-control.
So how did he actually stick to his guns in a totally foreign country? Well, he didn't just cross his fingers and hope for the best. Nope, he engineered a whole system. In a little text he wrote called Guide to London, he laid out this incredibly detailed, practical plan for surviving and even thriving on what was, even back then, a super tight budget.
And I mean, the level of detail here is just, wow, it's astonishing. He advised other students to wear cheap flannel shirts, but just attach these detachable white collars so they'd still look fashionable without the cost. And he meticulously, almost obsessively logged every single penny he spent. He basically turned his own life into a financial experiment.
And this just shows you how practical his system really was. This isn't just theory, right? This is an actual sample menu he created, and it costs less than 7 shillings a week. You can see the staples: oatmeal porridge, dal, khichdi. He was proving that self-reliance wasn't just some lofty idea. It was something you could literally cook up on a small oil stove in a tiny London flat.
Okay, so you can see how this all starts to build, right? This super intense personal discipline, it doesn't just stay in his kitchen. Pretty soon, it moves out into the public square. His commitment to vegetarianism became the training ground for his skills in public persuasion and argument.
So right away, he runs into this prevailing stereotype, this idea of the proverbial weakness of Hindus, and that it was all because of their vegetarian diet. But instead of just ignoring it, Gandhi decided to take the argument head-on, right in the pages of a journal called The Vegetarian.
And this is where it gets really clever. He totally reframes the debate. He argues that any perceived weakness has nothing to do with food and everything to do with these deep-rooted social problems like child marriage. Then he points out that some of India's strongest soldiers were, in fact, vegetarian. He was basically shifting the entire argument from biology to sociology.
And this line, this is the core of his whole argument. It's just brilliant. He makes this super intellectual case, suggesting there's a trade-off between physical brawn and mental brain. You know, a physically powerful Samson can't also be an intellectually powerful prime minister like Gladstone. It's such a sharp, memorable defense, and it really shows his budding talent for communication.
And of course he didn't stop there. He quickly used his new platform to tackle even broader issues, like fiercely criticizing the British for importing alcohol into India. You can see he was honing the exact argumentative skills he would later use to challenge an entire empire.
So all this practice he's been getting, the personal discipline, the public arguments, it was all about to meet its biggest test yet. When Gandhi moved to South Africa in 1893, his principles, which had been mostly theoretical, just collided with the harsh, brutal reality of systemic racial injustice.
And just look at how quickly this all happens. It's amazing. In just a little over a year after arriving in South Africa, this young, kind of shy lawyer completely evolves into a community organizer, founding his very first political organization.
And that organization was the Natal Indian Congress. This is such a crucial development, you guys. It was the first real-world application of his methodical mind to the world of political activism. It was his blueprint finally being put into action.
Okay, but what's really cool when you look at this is the structure. This wasn't just some reactive protest group. Just look at their declared goals.
It was totally strategic, promoting harmony, advocating for rights, ensuring welfare, community improvement. This is the work of an organizer, a strategist, a true builder.
And underneath all of that careful organization was a voice with some serious moral fire. In one of his petitions against these unjust laws, he ends with this direct, searing challenge to the authorities. Yeah, the shy student is definitely gone. A confident, fiery advocate has taken his place. All right, so as we wrap this up, let's connect all these dots. How do we get from the super meticulous student in London to the world-changing leader we all remember? Well, the blueprint was there the whole time.
This right here, this lays it all out perfectly. It really is like two sides of the exact same coin. The same methodical mind that planned a 9-shilling budget was now drafting complex government petitions. The same intellectual energy he used to defend vegetarianism was now being used to defend the civil rights of an entire community. The impulse to create a helpful guide to London for a few students just evolved into creating the Natal Indian Congress to guide an entire people.
So here's the big takeaway. Nothing was wasted. The discipline he forged in his personal life became the absolute foundation for his public work. The Mahatma wasn't just born one day, he was meticulously built through daily practice. And the blueprint? It's right here, in these very first writings.
You know, the preface to his collected works ends with this really powerful thought. It's a reminder that to understand his greatness, we have to look at the whole arc of his life. A journey that started not with a famous march or a big speech, but with a quiet promise to his mother and a budget for 9 shillings a week.